So, in this short video, I want to once again revisit the theory about Sandrone's connections to Narzissenkreuz and Marianne. I know that everyone is talking about the Luna 3 update right now, which looks amazing by the way, but I really don't have much time for this lately, so this video will have to be released at this unfortunate time. I will quickly summarize all we know about Sandrone and what truly happened in the Narzissenkreuz Ordo, and how I think she could have been connected to all of it. Well, as you all probably already know at this point, Sandrone, or the marionette, is the seventh of the Fatui Harbingers, who spends most of her time tinkering with her machines or being immersed in her research. Aside from the fact that she looks like a mechanical doll, riding on the hand of her robot companion, and that she rarely appears in public, we knew next to nothing about her until recently. She looks very Fontaine-coded, so a lot of people, including me, theorized in the past that she may at the very least be somehow connected to Fontaine, especially considering that a lot of her own designs are connected to clockwork that's used there. It was also recently confirmed that she is indeed the creator of Catherine, but that was very heavily hinted even in the past, and her design hints at the possibility that she is a very intricate machine herself. Now, ever since Fontaine work quests were released, people noticed that Sandrone looks very similar to a certain girl called Alain Guillotin from the Narzissenkreuz Ordo world quest series, and everything we know about her seemed to imply that there was definitely some connection between the two, and that has now been confirmed to a certain extent in the recent Archon quest. But at this point, I should probably explain and summarize the whole Narzissenkreuz situation. Well, if I were to skip over a lot of stuff to make this brief, and not including what Sandrone already told us, in the distant past, about 5 centuries ago, there was an orphanage in Fontaine, and in this orphanage, there were 4 very important kids: Alain and his sister Marianne, Jacob Baker, and René de Petrichor. They often used to play together and really liked the stories of heroes defeating an evil dragon and saving a princess. Sadly, one day, the institute had to disband, and they were adopted by different people, so they split up. Alain and Marianne were looked after by a marechaussee hunter named Alain Guillotin, and a journalist called Karl Ingold took care of René and Jacob. Since then, Jacob changed his surname to Ingold as well. Since René was a very bright kid, he once went on an expedition to Sumeru together with Karl and Jacob, and at some point during the research, he learned of the tragic prophecy of Fontaine that would happen in 500 years. He named his research and calculations of this phenomenon the fourth formula. Ever since then, his sole focus was saving the world from this future apocalypse and creating a better world for him and his friends. While René and Jacob slowly worked together on their plan to save the world, Alain became a young genius mechanic who also slowly began to change the world via his creations. His sister Marianne eventually became a marechaussee agent, and Alain even created a mechanical dog to assist her and protect her during her missions. Anyway, slowly but surely realizing their plan, Jacob and René created a secret society called the Narzissenkreuz Ordo, with the sole goal of preventing the prophecy coming true. They recruited many members and showed the vision of the word formula to convince them of their goal. At some point, René finally tried to get his plan into motion by uniting the wills of all Fontainians and resisting the apocalypse. But to do that, he first had to create an entity which can achieve that. This entity would then be named Master, or Narzissenkreuz. So he made a grand ceremony in which he united his will by merging with an Oceanid that previously took care of them in the orphanage. To achieve all of this, he used the ceremonial sword of Narzissenkreuz. Unfortunately, the ceremony failed and he was left dead and decapitated. This was a big blow to the organization, and Jacob decided that he will try to revive René and hide the truth about his death and the failed ceremony from the other members of the Ordo. Ever since then, Jacob started doing many experiments to try and revive René, or rather Narzissenkreuz. To achieve this, he used many human subjects and researched the primordial sea, even by using his own members of the Ordo as sacrifices. This was even mentioned in the Fontaine Archon quest, and is the reason why Jacob Ingold was credited instead of René. This part is very important because most people consider the Ordos and René's deeds evil in general, and I think they are mostly right. But it's important to note that most of the truly bad stuff, including the inhumane experiments done in the Ordo, were Jacob's doing, and René had no knowledge of it. During these times, Marianne started to suspect them. Anyway, at some point, Jacob finally managed to revive Narzissenkreuz in his new complete form. However, Jacob intentionally manipulated his memories and left him unaware of the previously failed ceremony, so in Narzissenkreuz's viewpoint, the ceremony never failed and he achieved his form by simply merging the wills, while not hurting anyone else. Many events happened since then, but what's important is that about 400 years ago, the Ordo had a violent clash with the marechaussee hunters involving Alain and Marianne. Eventually, Narzissenkreuz was defeated and he fell all the way way into the primordial sea, where he waited ever since. Presumably, Marianne unfortunately died during this confrontation as well. Parts of her will remained in the form of an oceanid Anne, and the Marianne confined within the Anapausis. But that's not relevant to this video right now, and you can find out more by doing the word quest yourself. Anyway, eventually Narzissenkreuz woke up once more to finally fight the apocalypse, but the traveler and their companions managed to stop his plan. And thankfully, the apocalypse was already averted because the Fontaine prophecy has been resolved by Fossilor. Jacob unfortunately died during this whole ordeal, and Alain supposedly continued to live alone, constructing his machines and founding the Fontaine Research Institute. And that's basically it. Now we can just discuss the important details and how this all can be connected to Sandrone. What you should know is that all of these people were very important to Fontaine, especially Alain and René. Basically, a lot of what we know about the lore of Genshin nowadays is thanks to René. To name a few, when we explored the Khaenri'ah ruins in Sumeru, we used René's research notes. He was the one who researched and named the Scarlet Quartz from Dragonspine and even Rifthounds. It's thanks to him that we know the definition of Descenders, the 4 Teyvat Samsaras, represented in the root cycles, and many other things, including a lot of lore about visions, wills, and Khaenri'ah. Alain's impact on Teyvat can mostly be seen in his clockwork mecha, which he heavily modified, and it's the reason why Fontaine of today has so many of these advanced machines. He inspired a lot of today's research and researchers, and founded the Fontaine Research Institute, as I said earlier. Anyway, in the recent Archon quest, Sandrone told us her thoughts about the Narzissenkreuz Ordo, René, and Alain. She also told us that she was close with Alain, and that he even told her to destroy all of his research after his death, but she read through all of it before destroying it. It seems like after the death of his sister, he spent most of his time alone, and Sandrone remained as the only person who knew him in the end. But if you look at everything she said there, you can notice that she basically didn't mention Marianne at all, almost even made it look like she was intentionally avoiding this topic, and many people, including me, think that it's because she tries to hide the supposed truth that she was in fact created by Alain to resemble his sister, which he loved a lot and was probably very deeply saddened by her death. I think that everyone already knows about their visual resemblance, which can be very clearly seen on these photos, but there's more than just that. Her interests in machines, which she probably inherited from Alain, her past connections to him, everything just seems to fit. Even the fact that she didn't mention Marianne at all hints at the possibility that she either didn't want to reveal her true identity to us, or maybe even Alain hid this truth from her. So in the case it wasn't clear already, here is what I think. I believe that Sandrone is Alain's creation, made to look exactly like his sister Marianne, which he probably made because of the sadness he felt after losing his sister. I personally think that she should be aware of this fact, but I am not exactly sure. After Alain's death, she probably wandered the land until she was approached by the Fatui, maybe even someone like the doctor, who took interest in her and decided to try to recruit her into the Fatui. In the recent Archon quest, she even hinted that she has some sort of reason she wants to stay in the Fatui, but it's hard to say what exactly that could be right now. Maybe it could be related to something like Alain's unfulfilled wishes, or something like that. Anyway, that will be it for this short video. I just wanted to make one short summary of this theory, since I noticed a curious lack of Sandrone videos on my channel. I already mentioned René and Narzissenkreuz Ordo in a bunch of my previous videos, but still I think it's nice to make one video about this specific topic to anyone who would be interested. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learned something new. But with that said, that will be everything, so take care and I'll see you in the next one.